My name is Mark Toffoli. I'm a Vice President of Sales at Conexiom. I've been with the company since 2002. As you may have heard earlier, I'm based in Vancouver in Canada. With me is Harry Montgomery. Maybe, Harry, you can just take a quick second to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hey everyone, Harry Montgomery, Director of Sales Engineering for Conexiom in EMEA. So I've been with the business for around 2.5 years now. And my role today will be going through a live demonstration to give you a flavor of how Conexiom can potentially benefit your business.
Thank you, Harry. So I think we're going to move fairly quickly through this. So in terms of an agenda today, we're going to talk about some industry trends that we're noticing. We're going to talk about how manual processing has been moved from what, when I started in this business 20 years ago, was seen as how you stayed in touch with your customers to what is today seen as a competitive disadvantage. And then talk about delivering winning customer experience, walk through a case study with you, and then we'll walk through a live demo, as Harry said, of a couple of transaction types. So we'll walk through a live demo of a special pricing, and then we'll also walk through a live demo of a sales order automation, so an inbound purchase order from a customer. So if everyone's good to go, let's move on. So in terms of the market space, we did a survey recently, and in the survey, we were looking to understand how people were affected by the pandemic and then the post-pandemic economy. And what we found was really interesting. The pandemic and the post-pandemic market economy has not affected hiring and retention as much as people had originally expected and predicted, which was pretty interesting. The second thing that came out of it that was interesting is that in manufacturing and distribution, there's an expected gap in employment of about 2.4 million open jobs by 2028 and 5 million by 2030, which is, I think, some pretty staggering numbers. I don't know, Harry, those stood out to me, quite a bit more than I was expecting. Now, when we look at the last bullet point in terms of our prospects and our customers out there, they actually said 42% said that it had a positive impact. And that was a really interesting takeaway for me, is that 42% of respondents in our poll believed that the pandemic and the post-pandemic market has positively impacted their ability to hire. Now, as we advance through the slides, we can see that people are not expecting that to continue. In fact, they're expecting that hiring will not be easier. And the recent industry data that came out from the US federal government in December backs that up. The inflation numbers, while coming down, are being, because of high interest rates, are being offset by really strong employment. Like, we're at record low unemployment. I think 3.6% was the number that I heard for December, with strong growth, almost 500,000 jobs created in December. Now, those are big numbers. So even though we're hearing some very high profile layoffs in companies like Amazon and Apple and some of the other big, I think Dell most recently, the marketplace is still showing very full employment and strong hiring out in the marketplace. So if people are worried about the ability to hire, how does that impact? Well, it impacts, if there's manual processes in the business, your ability to deliver a good customer experience is going to be very, very difficult. And the expectation of hiring remaining difficult continues because they're still expecting a significant percentage of the workforce to be exiting due to retirement. So these are some big numbers and some big concerns that are out in the market today. So these are things that I think are of interest to most of the customers and the prospects that we're talking to today. Now, when we look at manual processing of documents and the concept that this is a competitive disadvantage, there's some numbers here, and then we'll talk about the numbers and the competitive disadvantage statement. So let's go through the numbers first. So 52% of manufacturers report that even though they'd invested in digital transformation, they still have manual processing being done within their business, and 48% have entire teams dedicated to it. So this is a big number. And in fact, according to B2B Online, documents being processed that come in by email and then are processed manually make up today the single largest channel. It's about 45% of the transactions. So this is a huge number. If you add into it the McKinsey report that the manual tasks in the overall economy will be down by 27%, and it's going to have a big need for increase in cognitive and technological skills. So how do we bridge that gap, and how do we manage the issue of these manual processes that are still done? So what's the challenge with emailed documents and how you can move the needle there? Well, one of the key things with moving the needle, and Harry, you'll know this, when you talk to your customers and your prospects, they'll tell you, hey, you know what? We can't get our customers to change how they send stuff to us. Our customers send us emailed orders today, and it's because it's fully automated for them. We've offered them our website, but they've told us that that's dual entry, or they have to enter things in two places, once in their own purchasing system and a second time on our website. And a lot of them don't necessarily have the technological capability to take on doing EDI or XML-based transactions or some API connectivity. For them, the most automated and easiest is just to hit the send button, and that sends us an email. So how do we deal with that, given we can't change our customers' behavior? And so the big thing with that is you can either figure out how to do it, or you can give your competitors a competitive advantage. Because if they can figure it out and you can't, they'll deliver better customer experience at a lower cost. So let's talk a little bit about one of our case studies and what one of our customers found. So this is an electrical manufacturer. They contracted with Conexiom to automate their inbound sales orders, so purchase orders being emailed to them by their customers. And if you look at the top line, forget all the productivity benefits. If you're in a competitive market space, which most of us are, the most important thing out there is to differentiate your product and your service from your competitors. And customer experience is one of the key differentiators out there. And as this customer says, they were able to improve the customer service, the service they provided to their customers. And the CSRs, their customer service people, are able to see the benefit of that improved service that they offer to the customers while taking up less of their day for the manual intervention. So when you looked at why they did this, their pain points were they wanted to deliver a strong customer experience, but they wanted to spend less time on the manual entry that was involved in that. They needed to hire headcount, but in the marketplace, they were finding hiring that headcount challenging. And they were initially concerned about handling order volume during the pandemic. and the ability to handle that order volume with acceptable order cycle time. So, I get an order today. When does it get into my system? Does it come in the morning when I get it? Or do I need to actually spend 24 or 48 hours because I don't have enough people to get the orders in fast enough? So their environment was a pretty challenging one. They had two different main ERP systems for their order entry. So one SAP, S4HANA, and another one was Oracle. They had a reasonably high volume of orders, about 2,500 orders a month that they wanted to process. And they were having a challenge managing this during peak times. Once they implemented Conexiom, they're automated that 2,500 orders a month. They were able to not only deliver a better customer experience, but also able to reclaim time to focus on higher value added tasks. The also mitigated the need to hire new staff, and which was a key thing. So if these challenges are challenges that you have in your business today, then I think you may be especially interested in the demonstration that Harry's going to come up with in a couple of seconds. But for all of that, let's focus on, a few things. One, are you going to be able to change your customers' behavior, or are you going to need to find a way to manage the emailed orders that come into their business today? If you already use EDI and e-commerce, then you'll likely know the answer to that question. And why should electrical distributors prioritize this and manufacturers prioritize this? Well, you should prioritize this because of the number one reason that our VP of IT quoted above. It's for improving your customer experience. So at this point in time, I'm going to pass this over to Harry to walk us through a quick live demo. And Harry, why don't you tell the group assembled what you're going to cover as we bring your screen live.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, so as I share my screen, we'll go through a live demonstration today. So that means we'll send some documents into the system and walk through the life cycle. And what we're ultimately going to show you is how you can turn those incoming email documents that Mark's spoken about into transactions in your ERP system without anybody needing to manually be involved in that process. So what we're looking at on the screen here is the Conexiom platform. We've got different views and dashboards and reporting that's available to you as a business to be able to have greater and earlier visibility into those transactions as they're coming through. And what we'll do, as I mentioned, is we'll send through some different documents, different use cases. So we'll touch on different scenarios and give you an idea of the different variety of use cases, document types. Typically, what we see is automation with our customers across sales, supply chain, and accounts payable. So we'll touch on a couple of those pieces today. The first document that we'll send in is a special pricing agreement. So a document coming in from one of your suppliers that needs to be entered into an external system. And the other two we'll look at are incoming purchase orders from your customers. So again, how do we quickly and accurately get those into Conexiom and into your ERP systems, creating those transactions, improving that customer experience without the manual effort that's required today to manually enter these documents. So the first thing that I'll mention at this stage, Mark mentioned commerce platforms, EDI, requires the customers and suppliers to drastically change the way that they work and interact with you that they do today. With Conexiom, the key piece to mention is that your customers and suppliers continue to send their documents via email as they do today, in the same formats, same file types, in the same languages. So they don't need to change. They don't even need to know that you're using Conexiom to automate the process. they'll just see the benefits of being able to process and confirm in a more timely fashion with 100% data accuracy. So we have in here 3 separate documents. First of all is an Excel for the special pricing agreement. So we'll imagine that we are your supplier. We'll send that into the same mailboxes, same email addresses we do today. Same on the customer side. So imagining that we are your customer, we will email our PDF purchase orders into the same email addresses. And in the background, we'll look to automatically divert those into the Conexiom cloud platform. In the background, what Conexiom is able to do to be able to get those transactions seamlessly into your ERP system is broken down into these 5 key steps. The first of which, as I say, is diverting those documents into Conexiom and being able to ingest those into the platform. The second piece is extracting the key relevant data points from each of those specific documents, relevant data points to your business. And we don't use optical character recognition to extract the data. We use proprietary extraction technology, and it allows us to extract data with 100% data accuracy, mitigating the risk of any manual keying errors. It saves, compared to optical character recognition, the need for a validation step. What we'll then do is contextualize that data. So understanding what those data points mean, what they mean to you specifically as a business. Once we have clean, accurate data, what we can then do is move into our transform step. So adding predefined rules, logic, master data validations to confirm, is everything on this document correct? What you're expecting to receive into the business? If the answer is yes, we can deliver that into your external system without anybody having to manually touch or be involved in this process. And this full end-to-end from ingest through to deliver, that whole process can happen in under 2 minutes. So again, giving you the speed of process, the accuracy, and freeing up those internal resources to be able to add more value to the role and to the business.
Hey, Harry, before you move off this slide, maybe worth a minute just to talk about why the data extraction accuracy is so important and why the contextualization accuracy is so important.
Sure. Yeah, so what we see when we're speaking to customers on a daily basis is that there's a range of around 4 to 6% in terms of error rates when entering a manual order into the system. So that ultimately has a knock-on effect. It has a cost to the business, whether it's pricing that's incorrect, volumes of documents and goods that are being delivered incorrectly to customers. But it also means that if the data is 100% accurate, your customer service teams, your purchasing teams, your AP teams, they don't need to look at the data and validate, is this data accurate against the document that I've received? It allows them to be freed up completely from that manual entry process and allow Conexiom to pass that through automatically.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you, Harry, is if it's not 100% accurate, there needs to be a workflow where you have to check every single document to determine if what was done right. If you can
Exactly
trust
right.
it's 100% accurate, it allows it to be then automated versus workflow. Am I hearing you right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I thought that was worth double clicking on for the team.
Yep. Okay, so as we was going through that process, you may have seen in the top right-hand corner, we started to receive some emails through. So as I say, live demo today, we've sent those 3 documents into Conexiom. They've already been fully processed, so within that 2-minute time frame. So if we jump into the Conexiom platform again, we can see the number of documents we've received and processed so far. If I refresh the dashboard, we've received 16 documents. We've now received 19. So those 3 documents have now come into the system. 2 of those have gone into our documents complete folder. So they are completely touchless. So nobody has had to manually key data, validate any of the information, or look at that particular document. We extracted the data with 100% accuracy. We validated against your master data and then delivered into your ERP system. And the final document has come into our alerts. So as part of the process, we appreciate documents will not always go through successfully. There may be an error on the customer or supplier. They may have put the wrong price. They may have entered a part number that wasn't recognized. So we have the ability to surface those exceptions and allow your internal resources to work to exceptions rather than reactively managing and touching every single document that's coming through the business via email. So what we'll look at first is, again, touching on different scenarios. The first transaction we sent through was the special pricing agreement. So if we go into our email mailbox, we can see the emails have come through for those successfully processed documents. The document that we've got here is the special pricing agreement. And what we've done for this scenario is we've created an output of an EDI file. So there are different ways in which we can get the data into your relevant and respective systems, one of which is being able to convert that incoming information into a file format and deliver to your EDI queue or deliver to an SFTP server. So what we've got here is, on the left-hand side, the original special pricing agreement, and on the right-hand side is the EDI extracts. So again, we saw the document come in and we produced this 100% data accurate document within that 2-minute time frame.
So I'm gonna ask another quick question here. So why did we choose EDI for this special pricing? Is this something that we see in the electrical space, that a lot of people have EDI, but it's not 100% adopted? What's the rationale behind that?
Yeah, so as you mentioned at the beginning, Mark, a lot of electrical manufacturers that we're talking to, that they have an EDI process, they have EDI set up, but the challenge that they have is not all of their customers are willing to take on the project and adopt that method of working with them. So they're still receiving large volumes of emailed orders or special pricing agreements. So what we'd look to do potentially in that process is, if it's working well, they're seeing the automation that they desire from the EDI process, we can ultimately piggyback on the back of that. So being able to deliver an EDI file to their EDI queue today, manage validations and exceptions within that queue. It allows those users to go through a process they're used to, they're familiar with, but still get more customers through that channel.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And I guess for manufacturers on special pricing, it's probably the rebates side of it that they would be getting back, and for their distribution channel partners, they might want the special pricing agreements like this. Okay, that makes a ton of sense. Now, I noticed we have a couple of questions, so I'll maybe look to grab those right after you finish the demo. So I'll be right. I do catch a couple of questions. So Harry, why don't you? I know we got a couple of minutes left in your demo, so why don't we finish that and I'll come to questions.
Sure, sounds good. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll move on into the next scenario that we've got. So coming back into the Conexiom platform, the other use case and document type we saw send through to the system was a purchase order from your customer. So if we go into our customers, this is the customer that we've received that purchase order from. We get some more granular data for that particular customer. And if we go down to our production documents, we can see this is the document that we received as part of today's demonstration. We can see that the chain, so what happened, the event of the document coming in, the email confirmations that were sent out to the individuals. We've got a copy of the order itself on the right-hand side. So what we can see is this is actually a 5-page, 50+ line item order that we've been able to process and actually create the transaction in the ERP system in this scenario. And if we go to the top, we can see the system received this at 9:17. and it fully processed it at 9:18. So the speed and accuracy of the process again, so freeing up those internal resources to not have to manually key. Going back to Mark's point around the challenges of keeping hold of talented workforce and the employment, it allows you to improve NPS. I worked with a customer in Europe where a huge driver of their project was to improve their employee NPS. So allowing people to add more value to their roles, to the business, ultimately do the role they were employed to do, can improve both the employee experience as well as your customers and suppliers. As I mentioned, this transaction has not only gone through Conexiom, we've also created the transaction in the ERP system. For demo purposes today, what we will show you is this order has been created in SAP. But from experience with the electrical manufacturers that we work with today, there's a broad spectrum of different ERP systems that they work with and we ultimately integrate with. From SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, Sage, Epicor are some of the most common ones. So Conexiom is ERP agnostic. We'll look to work with the particular ERP system that you have in place today. So again, on this one, to very quickly just show you side by side, original order on the left and the transaction that's been created in the ERP system on the right. As I mentioned, it's a 5-page, 52-line item order. So in that short time frame, we've been able to extract not only the header level details, so the values, sold to, shipped to, purchase order numbers, dates, but also the relevant data on each of those 52 line items. So all of the material numbers, the quantities, units of measure, descriptions, extended price, and dates as well. What we saw on the slide was a step for the transformations. So on this document, again, we haven't just extracted and created this transaction. We've got 2 transformations that have happened in this process. First of all, the item number we can see has a period or a decimal point. So we know we can't accept that in the ERP system. So we've built a rule to automatically remove that before pushing to SAP. And another very common one that we see is around units of measure. So we've been able to look at the order, find the item number. This customer has ordered a quantity of 100. We've done a validation into our master data and found that actually for this particular material number, we produce and fulfill that in packs of 100. So we've done a lookup on the material number. We've then converted the quantity to 1, the units to a pack, and then just confirmed and validated that the price for that particular line item still matches the value on the order. So we've then been able to still get that through the system as a fully touchless order. So being able to build rules and logic to maximize the number of orders that are going through as fully touchless.
That's powerful, Harry. That's really powerful.
Okay. I know we're almost out of time. So the final scenario that I wanted to touch on was the exception management. So again, there are different options when working with Conexiom. We touched on the EDI, so we can deliver to an EDI exception queue. We can manage exceptions in your ERP system if you have that built out today and is working. What we also have within the Conexiom platform is an exception management tool. So again, we know customers may send incorrect information. When we're doing that transformation, validating against your master data, we can then surface any exceptions and notify the relevant teams or individuals. So if we click into our alerts tab, we can come in and see that we have an alert here that needs to be looked at. Opening that up, it gives you a very clear view, again, side by side of the original document, as well as the extracted information. And again, to reiterate at this stage, we haven't interpreted or scanned or used OCR on the data, the user doesn't need to validate, is the information on the right correct and match what's on the left? It's 100% data accurate. All they need to do is look for the exception within this particular document. There's no prizes for guessing which field on the right-hand side has flagged as an exception. So again, clearly and easily marking this red field is where the exception lies. And then in the top right-hand corner, it will give a brief description to let the user know why this is flagged as an exception and allow them then to take action on that. So ultimately, allowing them to work to exceptions. They can manage this in the Conexiom platform, correct this particular alert. Once they're happy, they can approve this document. It will then start the process again of sending that transaction to create the order in your ERP system.
Thank you, Harry.
Okay. So with time in mind, I'll stop sharing my screen as Mark, I know we got some questions come through during the demonstration.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So I noticed there was a couple of questions. So one, and they're both around integrations. So both parties asked around interfaces and integration with NetSuite. So specifically, I know many colleagues in the industry are using NetSuite for ERP. Can you talk about your integration with NetSuite and any success stories emerging from the Conexiom NetSuite experience? So thank you for the question. Great question. So as Harry mentioned, Conexiom works with any different ERP. However, we do have some partner relationships set up. So SAP and Microsoft and Epicor are partner relationships, and we're in the NetSuite front, we have partnered with one of the NetSuite development partners to develop some integration. So we do have a developed integration for 3 transactions in NetSuite today. Sales order automation, so that's inbound emailed customer purchase orders. Accounts payable invoice automation, so that's inbound emailed AP invoices, and order acknowledgement automation, so emailed inbound supplier acknowledgements around delivery or price. That traditionally would have happened for all 3 of those transactions either manually or through EDI, or trying to move that trading partner to a website. Those can now be done through Conexiom. And for the person who asked the question, if you'd like us to follow up with you after this, we can actually walk you through. I think we've got about 15 to 20 NetSuite customers using those different use cases that we can walk through with you how they're using it specifically and where success stories may be. The other one that was asked was not just, they'd asked about NetSuite, but they'd also asked about Epicor Profit 21. And we have a similar integration with Epicor Profit 21, though the partnership is formalized more with Profit 21. We're a gold partner to Epicor directly versus the partnership with NetSuite, where we're dealing with one of the channel partners at this time. So hopefully that answers that question. Are there other questions?
There's a question mark around languages that we saw English language in the demonstration today, but are there any language limitations?
That's a great question. And so there are no language limitations to Conexiom for allowing it to process these email transactions. So as long as any language can come through. So the way Conexiom works is it actually captures the character data that's based in the email document by capturing the actual, Unicode or ASCII characters that are there. So whether it's a single byte, so like romanized characters, or double byte, so the kanji or the Cyrillic characters that require 2 bytes for them. We can capture all of those characters with the same 100% accuracy. And Another question. I see one other question on, do we need to have EDI for special pricing agreements? So no, you do not need to have EDI for special pricing agreements or rebates. Those are just common formats that our customers have asked us for. So that's what we demonstrated with today. But if there are other formats that your ERP system can accept and ingest automatically, then we can work most likely with those. So I think that hits it for all our questions today. A couple of other things probably that we should look to push forward. I know in addition to Q&A that we also want to talk about our next session. So in addition to thanking everybody for joining today, I also wanted to invite you to join us on February 28th. Again, we're going to talk about why Conexiom will be a better solution than OCR in every case for this type of transaction processing. So we'll have a live webinar, Feb 28th, again at 12 noon, and we'll look forward to having you register. We'll push the link out into this session so that you can join directly. Again, thank you everybody very much. Harry, particular thank you to you for walking through the live demo. That was awesome. And I look forward to seeing everybody again in a few weeks on Feb 28th. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.